Today on Investigate TV Plus, 5 days, 53 hours, a lifelong emotional scar.
It was the worst experience of my life, and no one should ever have to go through what I went through.
Amanda Knox says she endured a traumatic interrogation that resulted in her falsely confessing to murder. And our investigation found her experience happens more often than people think.
That's what scares me, is like, what they're saying to me is so not real.
We examine the use of deception during police questioning, why some argue the tactic is a practical investigative tool, and hear from those advocating for truth over trickery. Plus, homegrown terror. Following a deadly vehicle ramming attack in New Orleans, law enforcement specialists warn that crowds and open spaces have become easy prey. We take an in-depth look at the security challenges posed by soft targets and explore strategies to combat the threat and keep you safe.
Then, remember her name.
Sassy stands for sass, of course me. And A stands for Asia is my name.
Because this young woman is the brains behind a budding beauty brand.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus. Confessing to a crime you didn't commit. It seems unthinkable, but growing research shows it does happen. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm T. Chappelle. One infamous case involving a false admission of guilt centered around Amanda Knox. Her story began in 2007 when Italian authorities zeroed in on her for the murder of her roommate, Meredith Kircher. After hours and days of interrogation, Amanda confessed to a crime she didn't commit. It would take years for the Italian courts to exonerate her.
Reporter Kristen Crowley sat down with Knox to learn more about her confession and how it's led her to advocate for changes to policing techniques that she and others argue are responsible for wrongful convictions.
Her face was plastered on every news station, on magazines and newspapers. Seemingly overnight, Amanda Knox went from a life of obscurity to one of infamy. In 2007, studying abroad in Italy, the then 20-year-old was accused of taking part in the rape and murder of her roommate, a crime she didn't commit. It would take years before she would prove she was innocent.
It was the worst experience of my life, and no one should ever have to go through what I went through.
But Amanda isn't talking about the trial, the guilty verdict, or even her 4 years in prison. She's talking about what happened before all of that, the police interrogation. Police used a tactic Amanda didn't know they could during her more than 50-hour interrogation. They lied to her about evidence, saying they had proof she was home during the murder.
Now I'm put in a position of trying to make sense of that. That doesn't make any sense to me.
She says she started doubting her own memories. Her self-doubt became so strong when police typed up a confession.
I was confused. I didn't know even really what I was signing.
And you signed it?
And I signed it, because at that point, I didn't know what else to do.
Amanda falsely confessed to the crime, something the Innocence Project says happens far more often than people realize. The group says of the cases they track, almost 30% of people exonerated of a crime by DNA gave a false confession to police.
We know one of the top contributors to false or unreliable confessions is the use of the false evidence ploy, or lying about evidence.
David Thompson is a certified forensic interviewer with Wicklander, Zalowski & Associates, who trains police all over the country on interrogation practices.
It has a lot of power to maybe convince people to confess, maybe guilty people. It also causes maybe innocent people to have memory distrust and think, well, maybe I did do that.
Thompson says new research has led his firm to change its teachings and get away from deception.
That's what scares me, is like, what they're saying to me is so not real.
Here's an example from 2018 in Fontana, California. This man, Thomas Perez, reports his father missing. Police bring him in for questioning and tell him his father isn't missing.
We just told you we found her dead, Dad, and you don't give a f***.
5 hours into the interrogation, Thomas starts confessing.
What about the scissors?
That's possible. It's
Possible?
possible.
Did
yeah.
you stab him?
I didn't think that I did.
How many times?
One.
But Thomas didn't kill his father. No one did. His father was alive. Thomas Perez confessed to a crime that didn't even happen.
How is it that police all over the country, in different cities, in different states, use some of the same tactics, like deception?
Yeah, I think a lot of the interview tactics or techniques that are used go back to decades and decades and decades ago.
One of the most well-known, widely used strategies for interrogation practices is the Reid technique. Developed in the 1970s by John Reid, a former police officer.
The Reid technique is the most effective way to develop a guilty person's frame of mind where they decide to tell the truth about what they've done.
The interrogation portion of the Reid technique follows 9 steps. Step 3, handling denials, says investigators can respond by introducing evidence of a suspect's guilt, real or not, though it says almost always it will be actual evidence. The company goes on to say it is not accurate to portray the Reid technique as being centered around incriminating evidence, real or fictitious. Criticism has grown against the Reid technique in recent years. An article published on the FBI's website says Reid technique-trained investigators are sometimes unaware of the psychological impact of their approach, as well as their own potential biases. And a number of other researchers call the technique guilt presumptive. But that criticism hasn't changed the fact that departments all over the country sign up for retraining. The group's websites show upcoming sessions from Missouri to Hawaii, Louisiana to Texas and Michigan, among dozens of others. Reid & Associates president Joe Buckley says it's when investigators don't follow Reid's guidelines that they run into problems.
In terms of it being guilt presumptive, we interrogate people who we believe, based on the evidence of the case, committed the crime. We don't interrogate people who we think are innocent.
Do you think we need to get away from this guilt presumption in the interrogation, given the fact that we do see false confessions, and there are innocent people that end up in that interrogation room who then eventually confess?
Well, when you look at the circumstances, it's not the guilt presumptive, it's what the investigators do. When you interrogate somebody for 17 hours, and then the person confesses, the reliability of that confession is minimal at best.
Buckley says Reid are guided by the fact that courts continue to accept confessions made using their methods. Some experts say Reid alone cannot be blamed for the tactics police use that lead to false confessions. And in the case of Thomas Perez,
It did happen. You killed him. And he's dead.
the Fontana Police Department says it has no records of dealing with Reid & Associates. The Innocence Project says police deception is a major problem that needs to change. The Washington chapter has tried to get a law passed in Washington state eliminating the tactic. Joining the fight is Amanda Knox.
And I believe that if I had not been lied to by the police, none of this would have ever happened.
But the bill doesn't have support from law enforcement leaders and has never made it to the floor for a vote.
I'm still afraid.
Knox,
And I shouldn't be.
is undeterred.
We can do better. We know how to do better. And I will keep fighting until it is done.
Other countries have moved away from seeking confessions and interrogations to using them to find more information.
It's called the peace technique. It's a 5-step approach where interviewers are encouraged to be fair and open-minded and to pursue reliable, true, and accurate information. Some experts say it's as effective as the Reid technique in getting confessions from the guilty.
Washington state lawmakers will revisit the bill blocking lying during interrogations during the 2026 legislative session, its 5th attempt at becoming law.
Up next, Homeland Security experts issue an ominous warning.
I think that we were going to see these style of attacks continue to happen.
We take an in-depth look at the use of cars and trucks as weapons and examine the lessons learned from the terror attack in New Orleans and how they could help prevent another tragedy.
A former Princeton football player, an aspiring nurse, a recent high school grad, and a loving dad. They're among the 14 lives taken after federal authorities say a man intentionally drove a pickup truck into a crowd in New Orleans on New Year's Day. The FBI confirmed the attack on Bourbon Street was an act of terrorism.
The agency defines domestic terrorism as violent criminal acts committed by an individual or groups to further ideological influences. The FBI says in the United States, terrorist threats have evolved from large group conspiracies toward lone offenders like the one in New Orleans.
Investigative reporter Stephen Stock takes an in-depth look at the troubling trend and examines some security measures that may lessen the danger.
The early morning tragedy on Bourbon Street marked the 12th time since 2017 somewhere in the world where a terrorist used a vehicle to plow into a crowd of people. It's a trend that troubles law enforcement, what they call soft targets for attack, because those targets are so difficult to establish effective security to prevent.
I think that we were going to see these style of attacks continue to happen.
Mike Matranga knows about the potential harm of attacks like this one on Bourbon Street firsthand. He planned how to stop those attacks as a Secret Service agent for more than a decade. He now owns a consulting firm in Houston, teaching local and state governments how to make hospitals, schools, and infrastructure safer. Matranga admits that in cases of lone wolf attacks like this, there's little that law enforcement can do to totally prevent them.
I am concerned. I do believe that this event will exacerbate the security needs.
But Matranga also believes that lessons learned from New Orleans' terror attack will help law enforcement across the country provide better crowd protection during large-scale gatherings such as parades, concerts, or sporting events.
I believe that they will be making the proper adjustments regarding, what's an appropriate blocking vehicle, what's not an appropriate blocking vehicle, and they will be looking at it from multiple different angles. But it should not take the death of 14 individuals to do that. That should be standard operating procedure moving forward, whether it be in New Orleans or whether it be in small town America.
We have seen this before.
Craig Fair served more than a decade in the FBI, including leading counterterrorism efforts. He's now senior security consultant at Mission Centered Solutions in Colorado.
Do attacks like this worry you that we could see more soft targets targeted?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The U.S. government, and specifically the FBI, who's in charge of the New Orleans investigation, cannot afford, either before an incident or after an incident, to not look at the indicators, to not keep their investigative eye on the ball, because the consequences are dire.
The FBI says the suspect, Samsudeen Jabbar, was a former U.S. soldier who had been radicalized and was a follower of ISIS. Fair says Jabbar's decision to use a truck to inflict damage is not unusual. Fair says ISIS has openly encouraged followers to use weaponry at hand, including vehicles, to cause harm.
We will continue to see less sophisticated forms of attack like this is probable, and that is based on recent history.
Security changes are now visible on Bourbon Street. In February of 2025, the city installed removable stainless steel protective posts known as bollards. Bollards are designed to block traffic. At the time of the attack, they were in the process of being replaced.
Still ahead, a mind for beauty and business, all at the age of 17. We introduce you to a young woman determined to take her homegrown brand and turn it into a household name.
But first, nature versus nurture. Which one plays a greater role in determining whether we develop certain illnesses?
The Medical Mythbuster provides answers and solutions to help you take control of your health. Maybe you've heard about a smoker who never exercised and is living happily into old age, or a vegan runner who had a heart attack at the age of 45.
It may make you wonder, is your well-being simply written into your genes? In this Medical Mythbuster, medical reporter Viv Williams explores the roles genetics and the environment play in your health.
Some people may think, my dad had a heart attack, so I'm likely going to have one too. Why should I bother trying to change the inevitable? Results of a Penn State study show that you can take steps to reduce your risk of disease, even if you've inherited genes that predispose you to certain conditions. The researchers say both your genes and environmental factors like air pollution, socioeconomic status, and healthy living habits influence your chances of getting sick, but how much each contributes to that risk has been unclear until now.
We noted that previously people overestimate the contributions of our genes to the disease risk and underestimate how much the environment contributes.
Dr. Dajang Liu, a Penn State College of Medicine professor, says their research team focused on an environmental factor that's known to be a health risk: air pollution. They used AI technology to sift through the health records of 50 million adults to find out what diseases people got. Then they dug deeper to see how much exposure these people had to two specific elements of air pollution: particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide. He says breathing particulate matter can increase your risk of asthma and COPD, and breathing increased levels of nitrogen dioxide can mess with your body's metabolism, how it changes food into energy. Eating more fruits and veggies and moving more are two things you can do to improve your health. But you might wonder, how can you do anything about air pollution? Dr. Liu says you should monitor air pollution levels, and to do so, you can go to www.airnow.gov and type in your zip code to see what the air pollution levels are in your area. With this medical mythbuster, I'm Viv Williams.
Up next, at 17, she's a girl boss.
I feel like my product belongs on QVC.
How she's inspiring other young women and securing her future.
Cosmetics are a multi-billion-dollar industry, and research by McKinsey & Company shows teens are spending more on beauty products than ever before.
So it's no surprise a 17-year-old in New Orleans got in the game. She's now running a beauty business that she hopes will make over her family's life.
You have like a mermaid one? Ooh, like this one.
They got a confetti one.
For Asia Dillon, making a sale all starts with the right setup.
I think it's the same one. It's probably the same one.
Perfectly placed pots of color for her name brand, Sassy A Cosmetics.
Here you go. Let me get your change. Sassy stands for sass, of course, me. And A stands for Asia is my name.
Oh, this is cute. Ready?
Asia is half of this mother-daughter duo.
I'm momature. That's what I call myself.
Well, this one got more silver than the other one.
Determined to turn their home business into a household name, just like the big brands.
They had a vision. We have one too.
That all began with solving a simple yet common problem: chapped lips. Asia did her research online and developed a lip gloss with all natural ingredients, specifically for her little sister Amara, who was only 5 at the time. And it worked.
And your makeup line was born.
Yeah, I first started with lip gloss, just plain lip gloss in a little Born squeeze too, but now I have little diamonds.
A variety of products from lipsticks to lip oils to face glitters and body shimmers that all promise sparkle and high shine. Asia's business keeps her booked and busy. She's out selling to the public every chance she gets.
And then you only apply it one time and the mark's gonna last a long time. I basically work every day. Like during school, after school, it could be making lip gloss, it could be mailing lip gloss.
So this takes dedication.
Yes, and time, and patience, because a lot of people don't have patience.
Where did you learn how to be business savvy?
Well, I get everything from my mother.
Did you get some good sales?
Who's Asia's biggest cheerleader, but admits she was skeptical at first.
I didn't think that, it was gonna take off or become something. But she was passionate about it.
Her passion, so contagious, this single mom of 3 stretched herself thin to support her daughter's dream.
So I had to get another job. When I'm tired, then I was going to school and working, taking care of my girls, back and forth. So it was a lot on me.
But she has no regrets.
I want my kids to create a future for themselves. Now that I see different for my kids.
Asia paid with her own check.
A financially secure future, far from the struggles of a single-parent home.
I want them to pay for their college. I don't want them to be in debt like I am.
But both Asia and her mom know it's going to take much more to make it big, putting any money earned now back into their budding business.
Marketing is the biggest part of, my business. So I try to save a lot to do marketing, trying to go on billboards. On Facebook, it's Sassy11.
And on the web to grab the attention of potential customers and maybe one particular future business partner.
QVC, you could sell out, and I feel like my product belongs to QVC.
But even if QVC comes calling, the Dillons say they'll always be humble.
Treat people like you want to be treated.
Oh, now that is awesome.
But aim to bring out the beauty in everyone.
Lift your bangs.
With a little bit of sparkle, a touch of sass, and a lot of shine. Asia's dream is to open a Sassy A cosmetics store and also teach classes on how to apply makeup. You can find her products at sassyaCosmetics.com. And I will say, I tried the lip gloss. It's really good. It's really good. It lasts all day.
Last all day? She was right.
She was right.
She had what, CEO on her shirt? I love it.
And she is a good CEO.
Bright future ahead of her.
She does.
Yep, that's it for us here on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Thanks for watching.
On the next Investigate TV Plus, parents have more questions than answers when their son died after a rare but sinister phenomenon.
I didn't know that you could put an 18-month-old to bed and they could just not wake up.
We take an in-depth look at the abnormalities similar to sudden infant death syndrome, but found in older children, and explore the fight for answers.